Awesome. Thank you, Actual Tech, for having us today. My name is Riley Bruce, and I am Director of Product Marketing for CrashPlan. I have been working in the backup space, helping folks make sure that they are protecting their data for over a decade at this point, which is kind of nuts. But today, we're going to talk about how you can stop making your disaster recovery process more difficult. We've already heard from a bunch of vendors at this point who are talking about disaster recovery and backup for things that are stored in places that humans aren't directly interacting with. However, too often we're seeing a large hole be created in these resiliency scenarios. That hole, namely, is the endpoint. So, the place where data is actually being used. A lot of the time, this is the first question that we will get when we start talking about what it is that we do here at CrashPlan. Why is endpoint backup important? We'll go through some of the ways that folks believe that they are protecting their endpoints and protecting the data on their endpoints in an upcoming slide. But right now, we need to talk about why is the endpoint still important in 2023? And the answer, quite simply, is it's in the middle of everything. Your endpoint is the place where you are editing your data. It's the place where you download and interact with your data. It's the place where this presentation that you're looking at right now was created and then uploaded into this system, right? So everything is happening here, from cat photos to presentations to these sync applications to your CRM to all of the different places that you're interacting with data, but it all flows through the endpoint. And too often, we're seeing people try and solve this problem by plugging in with all of these different places, plugging in with this tool over here, plugging in with that tool, trying to back that up. And that just leads to unnecessary complexity. There is a place where all of this data lives that you could just grab it from there and seamlessly upload it and protect it for your business. So that's why we believe that endpoint backup is crucial, because the endpoint is central to all of the work that you do. Now, I'm going to talk quickly about some solutions that people are using to the data on the endpoint problem and protecting that data. Increasingly, these two on the left side are kind of collapsing, where people have historically thought that we're going to just say there's no data on the endpoint. Nobody's allowed to store anything here. If you store anything here and then the device fails, it's your fault, which is a great thing for the business until it's the CEO's laptop, or until it's your boss's laptop, or it's the person who wrote all of your code and then didn't comply with the policy. So these solutions that are in place, specifically cloud collaboration and network shares, like I have on this slide, NFS was invented 40 years ago, and we're still having this problem. When it was invented, it was supposed to solve this so that, oh, nothing's going to be on the device that you're sitting in front of. Is that true for anybody who's watching this today? Because it's certainly not for me. Cloud collaboration is effectively just network shares and folder redirection with a nice new veneer on it, and it happens to be in the cloud, right? It's exactly the same tool. It's just not solving the backup problem. And I'll dig in a little bit more as to why it doesn't solve the backup problem in a couple more slides here. The last thing on here is SaaS tools. And yes, most of an organization's structured data, the source of truth anymore, should be in these databases, in your CRM, or in creative tools, right? Most of these solutions are backed up through some mechanism. Although, if you're thinking that your CRM is immediately backed up, I would encourage you to take a look at that. But the bigger issue is that while that data is backed up in its structured form, the majority of the time it will still wind up being exported to the endpoint. I don't know about your salespeople, but the salespeople that I interact with on a regular basis love their CRM. However, anytime that they're actually interacting with things like customer lists or they're trying to edit particular things, they will actually go through and they will export that to a CSV or an Excel document, and then they will interact with it directly on their laptop. So that then may or may not ever make it back up to the cloud. So all of these solutions to try and protect the business from the vulnerable laptop, right? I've got mine sitting right here, leave things to be desired. Specifically, when we're talking about cloud collaboration tools. And these vendors have done a really good job of trying over the last few years to increase basically their market presence by pitching to their users, hey, why don't you just use us as a backup solution for your end users? However, there are really 6 different ways that that falls apart. The first one is the data for your users is not fully backed up. Even if you're using the sync app or you have folder redirection turned on with OneDrive, it's only going to back up data that is in these specific folders that you have designated need to be synced to the cloud. If a user happens to save something and it's in a different place or it is not the right file type that is supported by one of these applications, it will not be protected and it can fail silently. The second issue here is that your user productivity is going to suffer. I know that I am in a place where if you can look at my face, you can probably assume that I am a millennial, and I am. So I grew up understanding technology better than I would say the average bear. However, even I find it difficult sometimes to remember to round trip things to Google Drive or OneDrive and actually save it in a place because, hey, it's already on my system. Why would I do that right now? Nothing's gonna, my hard drive isn't gonna fail today. Okay, great. I'm not gonna do that. So, user productivity, if you're actually going to enforce this, if you're going to make people go through this process, that's going to slow down and you're also going to have some morale issues. The next issue here is you can't meet compliance requirements. So, a lot of these solutions do not have very specific versioning protection. And in many cases, those versions will age out. So, if you ever need to produce or prove ownership of a particular file, you're in a situation where you don't have chain of custody, which all goes back to that first point. It's because the data wasn't fully backed up to begin with. This next one is my favorite because as a technologist, it is, to my mind, the most indisputable. The data that you store in a cloud solution is more vulnerable because you're taking what should be a copy and you are collapsing it into one logical version. What do I mean when I say this? A backup should be a secondary copy of your data. When we're talking about data that is stored in one of these cloud sync apps, it is effectively the version that is in the cloud that is the only one that exists. Because if anything changes that, if me and a colleague of mine are both working on the same presentation and they make a change, that will show up on my device. If I delete it in one place, it will be deleted everywhere. If an encryption event occurs, that happens everywhere. Versus a true backup solution, nothing happens to the data that's stored in the backup if something happens to the original copy of that data. The problem with these cloud solutions is you're collapsing it into there is only one copy. The next thing here, you can't restore data reliably. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to roll back a lot of versions, or there's been some sort of ransomware event in one of these cloud solutions. You basically have to go through, and in some cases you'll get lucky and you can do a folder at a time, but often you have to go file by file by file, version by version by version, doing this manually, which is just an absurd amount of time. The last thing here, it's more expensive. You are using something that should be secondary storage, that should be able to be a little bit slower, as primary storage. So what that means is it needs to be very quick. It needs to be responsive. I don't know if you've ever tried to use one of these apps and it's doing the whole like we'll stream the file thing to you and it takes like 20 seconds for a file to open. That's infuriating, but it would be even longer if you were thinking of it as secondary storage. So those are some of the key reasons that these cloud collaboration platforms don't solve the problem for you. The next one, and you'll have to pardon me, I have my notes up over here and I keep trying to switch my notes instead of the actual presentation. But the next and the biggest reason is these cloud providers admit that they aren't backup. Microsoft specifically says you may not be able to retrieve your content or data. Google says we don't offer any services or warranties for data that is stored in our cloud. So if you look at the terms and conditions of these services that are being pitched as though they are backup for your endpoint data, you will find that they are very specifically indemnifying themselves against being thought of that way. So I hope that that was all helpful information. And I just want to bring it home here quickly by saying that a lack of a strong endpoint backup is going to be a bad time for everybody. These are just 4 examples. The number one, I don't know if you all are familiar with the ransomware attack that occurred at Maersk in, I think it was 2014, but a lack of a strong backup that they could easily restore from kept their services down and basically brought global shipping to a stop for weeks. That's not good. Similarly, Toy Story 2, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie, and I'm not trying to put Pixar on blast because they're great, but they had a policy that said nobody can have another copy of the data for this film. Makes sense, right? From a security perspective, you don't want to do that. However, somebody actually went in and accidentally deleted everything. So they were on this network file share and they did a sudo rmrf star, which for those of you who have ever worked in a Unix shell know how bad that would be. And it deleted everything. They thought everything was lost. However, they found out that someone had actually made a non-sanctioned backup. So it was on an external drive that had been taken home by someone on maternity leave, and they were able to get most of that data back. Dish Network, again, ransomware was a huge problem, kept their website down for weeks. I don't know if any of you are Dish customers. This was within the last year. And just yesterday, there was an article published about somebody who went through and years after they had left an organization still had access to the cloud platform and deleted all of the data. So they were let go and they were still able to delete this data, which then was deleted from everybody's systems inside that were still using that data. So all of that to say, this could be very bad. And I've done a lot of talking about like how this is not a good time for anybody. But how easy could it actually be? How much less difficult could this be making? Wait, that wasn't good. How much less difficult could it be for you and your organization? Okay. I like to use this analogy. It's like the difference between using a vacuum cleaner and using a Roomba. If you're using one of these solutions where it requires the human being to actually go out and save things in a particular location and do that on a regular basis, you're using a vacuum. You are not using technology to solve the problem. You are not doing something that is automatically going to do this save for you that is going to create the second copy. So it could be as easy as just letting your Roomba go and never having to think about it again until, yeah, fine, it falls apart because you have to empty the Roomba, but it's fine. The analogy still stands before then. And that's the thing that we want to make clear here is that it is very easy to just install this application. And then whenever you do need it, it's super simple to recover data. And this is where I'm actually going to bring Jess back on. And we're going to do a good old fashioned demo versus laundry contest. I know that everybody should be able to, like, this is just a thing
This is
that's
super,
done, obviously.
super normal.
Yeah.
super traditional laundry verse demo
Yeah.
competition. Yeah, we
So
see
I
this
mean,
all the time in high school. It was just like a Friday night.
so what we're gonna do, Jess, I think you were gonna tell people
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Let me tell the
Sorry.
folks what we're going to do, Riley, while you get us all set up. So, okay, I have my handy dandy basket of laundry here that I've been saving all week for this. Yeah, I've been getting ready for this. So, this is all my nice laundry that we are going to fold. I am going to fold beautifully and neatly. And we're going to see if I can fold my basket of laundry faster than Riley can recover some data for you guys. So he's going to walk us through, and we'll see who's faster. The man versus machine is what it's a battle royale is what we're going with here. And I'm going to time it
Yeah.
too. We'll get a timer up on the screen, but I'm going to time it so that I can see how fast we do this, because I've never timed myself folding laundry. I have no idea how fast. I assume I'm amazingly fast at it, but let's see. Riley, are you ready?
We'll find out. I am ready when you are.
Okay. I'm going to give you a countdown. On your mark, get set, go.
All right. So the first thing that I need to do is I've received my new machine. This is as though it is brand new, and it already has the CrashPlan app installed on it because that's part of my organization's base image. Now, all I need to do is log in with my credentials here, and it helps if you can type correctly. It's much more stressful when, you're doing it for real here.
Yeah.
Yes, I am going to use Microsoft Edge to log in. Great. I'm already authenticated. Oh, I should have already been authenticated. This is where I get to yoink.
Okay. Wow, my heart is just racing right now.
Yeah, no, super exciting. This is the best television I think anybody has seen in a while. Everybody gets to see the handy dandy two-factor authentication, which everybody should have in place, but that's a different technology. Now I've got CrashPlan. I'm authenticated. It is on my brand new device. And it's asking me, is this a new device or am I replacing an existing one? So I'm going to choose that I'm replacing an existing one. I just need to go through these 3 quick steps. I'm going to start. I'm going to pick the device that I'm restoring from. I'm choosing that. And yes, I know that I am moving across platforms. That's okay. And now I just have to select my files. So I happen to know that there is a particular file that I was working on earlier that has to do with hairbrushes. It's something that is very important to business.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm going to search for this because I want to grab this file right now because it will allow me to get back up and running faster than if I tried to do my full restore. And it is sitting at loading. Great. So I've got, this is not a hairbrush. That is in fact the one that I want. So I can either select a previous version here. I can see all of my versions of my file that will pop up here in just a second. Or I can just download the most recent version as it existed on my system. I am waiting for this to load. This is the joy of letting Jess catch up to me.
You seem very relaxed. My heart is racing here, Riley. How are you so calm?
So I have this version right here that I can restore, and I'm going to have it go to my downloads folder, and I've got my file back pretty much immediately. So when I open this up, I can just double click on no hairbrush detected, and you'll see that, okay, there's no hairbrush in this image. It's a bunch of rakes. But that's one file. What if I need to restore my whole system? If I need to restore my whole system, it is just as simple. All I need to do is go through. I'm already in my users directory, so I will just select the whole thing. Click Riley Bruce, restore files. I can choose where I want it to go. I'm going to say desktop here, and if I was restoring to a similar system, also a Mac, it would be all good, and it would go to the original location. And now I am done.
What?
And someone else is not.
What?
So what I get to do is my favorite thing at the end of all demos, and that is find my handy dandy.
Oh my
post
gosh.
demo beverage.
Riley, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I really thought I was gonna have to fake it. I was like, I'm gonna have to like slow down and let the demo catch up a little bit as I go through my laundry. I still have like 3 shirts left and a pair of socks. Look at this nice Canadian plaid I've got here.
That is a lovely, but see, we would call that buffalo plaid. But
Yes, also
I don't know if that's a, we're on the other, just on the south side of the border.
just over the border
But
there. All
that
right.
hopefully gives y'all a taste of how easy it is to restore. It's easy enough that, yeah, I can do this in just a couple minutes, get the files back from a completely separate machine, and it's securely been backed up.
Riley, I feel like a little deflated. I think I need a beer now. That was
Here.
I mean, cheers. Well, hey, at least I got my chores done. Now my laundry's done. I got all this time. I could just go back some files up. That, by the way, like
Yeah.
that took me 4 minutes and 45 seconds to finish my laundry. And I think the countdown timer that's running on you will tell us. I can't see it, but I'm sure that you were much. I think you were a good minute and a half, if not 2 minutes, faster than me.
So there we go.
There we go. Well, okay, we do have some time for audience questions now. Should I switch over to camera 2 and we'll do some audience questions?
Let's do that. And here, I can throw this up. Thank you all. This has been wonderful, and we can open up the floor for some questions. If you ever need to reach me, my name is Riley Bruce. You can find me on the LinkedIn, or if you have questions specific to CrashPlan, you can just email at us at info@crashplan.com. So with that,
I'm so
questions.
frustrated with my. I even put in like socks to kind of make it hard, like little things, and then I put in some big cheater items, like big sweatshirts. I really need to work on my laundry folding. Well done, and let's get to some of these audience questions here. Riley, I'm having such a hard time focusing now. Riley, is there? Oh, this is a good one. Is there a size where things break?
All right. So there are actually 2 different answers to that question. The first answer is no, there is not a size at which this breaks in terms of number of devices within the organization. We've been doing this since 2007. We think we're pretty good at it, but our largest customers have hundreds of thousands of devices that are deployed and managed through a single instance, and they are all backing up seamlessly to our cloud. With that said, it is also simple enough that if you wanted to do this on your own, you could just go to crashplan.com and you could use it for yourself. The other side of that question is there a size of data, so like an amount of data that's on an endpoint, that would break things? And the short answer is, for most people, no. If we're talking about you trying to back up a massive like Isilon or something like that, yeah, you're going to have a hard time. You should use a different product for that. But for anything where it's somebody's day-to-day laptop or desktop, no, there's basically no amount of data that you could send us that would be a problem.
Okay, great. No amount of data. How about no amount of laundry? Is there a limit to the amount of laundry
I mean,
that you can fold?
Apparently we need to start that service because we could figure out how to speed that up too. So
Yeah.
we'll do that in the future, certainly.
Also,
It's a new line of business.
vacuuming. Yeah, I think I need you guys to back up my data, fold my laundry, and vacuum my clothes. You guys do all that, right? I knew you did.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that segues nicely into my next audience question that I have for you here, Riley, because speaking of all the wonderful things you do, we have a question here. And you know what? This is a really important one because there's a lot of folks out in the audience that are, making decisions, looking at different vendors, different solutions, things that are going to work for their organization. So when they're making those decisions, when they're kind of weighing out which is going to be the right solution for them. Question here, what makes you different from anyone else doing backup? What would you say to that?
So the answer to that, there are 3 things. We bill ourselves as secure, scalable, and straightforward, right? So you already kind of saw the straightforwardness. It's very easy to restore. We talked about the scalability a little bit just a second ago, so thank you to whoever teed up that softball question. But the security is really the third thing, and it is the thing that particularly differentiates us in this market. Um, we started as a consumer solution. So it was extremely privacy focused. It was for people who are tinkerers and technologists, right? And so, because of that, we built it so that each user has their own unique encryption key. And that's a 256-bit AES key, which may or may not mean anything to you, but it's jargon. So that means it's real. But what that means in reality here is we're actually making it so that if, let's say, Jess and I were both using the solution and we were in the same organization, right? If my credentials get compromised somehow, somebody's able to log into my CrashPlan account, the only thing that they would have access to is data that was stored under my user. So that came from my devices. Most other solutions, when we're talking about credential compromise, when we're talking about things like that, will open the door to other things, either because they're using one key for the entire organization, because they're trying to, sell you on this ideal of we can only back it up once for every single device in the org, which isn't great when you need to restore because it's slow. Or just generally, they're trying to hand wave through security. So our product is built from the ground up to be secure and to enable privacy for the organization and for the individual. And that's really the thing that, from my perspective, differentiates us the most in this market.
Well, that's some good differentiators there. And Riley, we are very short on time, so I unfortunately am going to have to leave it there. But I want to ask you before you run away, if somebody out there is all pumped up, wants to get into CrashPlan, they want to do their own laundry versus data recovery experiments at home, what would you recommend to get started? What's their first step?
Well, the first step would be to start a TikTok trend. No,
Perfect.
the
Yeah.
first step is actually just go to crashplan.com and you can either start a trial there, you can interact with us, or if that seems like too much, you can really just use the email address right here on this slide and email me, info@crashplan.com, and we will make sure you get routed to the right place.
Well, that's perfect. I think, yeah, TikTok trend is the obviously the correct way to go. But failing
Yeah.
that, I hope you guys all get a demo set up. And hey, show up for the demo with your own basket of laundry and challenge your CrashPlan rep to a laundry off and see how it goes. That's my challenge to all of you. And if anyone wants to race me in the future, I'm down. I'm in. I'm primed and ready. And I know Riley would love to race all of you at home. So thank you so much, Riley. This has been genuinely a lot of fun, and I hope we get to chat again soon.
Awesome. Thank you all, and everybody have a great day.
Yeah.